Welcome everyone, it's Matt, and today we're going to do Dynamax fighting analysis as part of our elemental rankings for May 2025. Before we do that though, we do have updates to the Pokemon Go's Shadow Raids and Max Battles, which I'd kind of like to go through as well. Shadow Raids and Max Battles now, we can use remote raid passes, which is going to be absolutely huge. This will start on May 13th for Shadow Raids and May 19th for Max Battles, which means Suicune, you won't be able to do remote raids, but for Gigantamax Machop, you will be able to. And quite honest, this is a huge update. On top of that, we will also have a increase of limit from max particles from 1000 to 1500. That still does not include the increase that we would normally be getting with special events. And trainers who participate in max battles in person will earn more premier balls and XP than before. So there is going to be definitely a reason to still be in person. But the good news is that you will still be able to get your max battles in. If you can't make it, or if you don't have enough local people, you'll be able to remote raid into larger groups. I'm not sure what I'll be doing yet for that, but right now we do have the ability to do that for Gigantamax Machamp. And honestly, this is really going to be important to get people more interested into Gigantamax raids. What I also like is in person we'll get more Premier and XP than before. The XP is only dependent if you're not level 50 right now, but getting more Premier balls will be helpful. My only worry is that they're going to make it as difficult as it was initially with like Blastoise, Charizard, and Venusaur. If you do it max battles, and you may have to pay the 200 coins to ensure that you get it, but at the least you'll be able to start doing these battles, which is huge. Communication will be tough, which is kind of important in some of the Gigantamax battles, but all in all, that's a very positive thing. We also will get remote raid limits increased from 5 to 10, which is nice. This is the way that Niantic / Scopely should be quote monetizing the game, giving us more remote raids limits so that we can, spend more money instead of making everything cost more. This is definitely a very positive movement. All right, let's get to our actual ranking. First one is Falinks. Falinks IV is between 1278 and 1347. We're going to get pretty confident with the resistances and weaknesses, but the weakness is Fairy, Flying, and Psychic with 60% for Falinks. And Falinks takes reduced damage from Bug, Dark, and Rock. This is the primary fighting weaknesses and resistances. The Falinks stats is relatively poor at 193 for attack, 170 defense, and poor HP. It's either at best average, if not below average, on every of all of its three stats. It does have two fast moves. Obviously, if you're using Falinks, you're going to use counter, but neither of these are exciting at all. And for charge moves, it has a bug and 2 fighting. As an attacker, it is a 3 out of 10 for the fighting group. Tank, it is an 8 out of 10. And healer, it's a 3 out of 10. From a tank standpoint, it is actually okay, but you'll see that I don't even include in the top of the tanks because there's no reason really to. The attacker, as an attacker, tank, and a healer, you can see it's below average or barely below average on all three. All right, on the next one, and this one's at least a lot more interesting, is Dynamax Passimian. Passimian has IVs when you capture between 1654 and 1733, so 1733 is your hundo. It's a fighting type, so it has the same weaknesses and strengths or resistances, and overall, the stats for Passimian, the attack is decent at 222. It's better than average, but it's not the highest for fighting. Defense is a little bit below average, but HP is pretty high up there as well, especially for fighting types. overall, it's actually a decent unit, uh, much better than Falinks. Its fast moves. One of the big problems with fighting types is they tend to be a bit slower. So we have the best one here once again is counter. It does have takedown as well, but you're not going to be using normal moves for that. For charge moves, it has 3 fighting and a dark. You're probably only going to be choosing fighting, and for Dynamax, you almost never use charge moves anyways. As an attacker, it is above average, but just barely. Tank is a little bit below average. And for a healer, it is tied for the best healing capability. But for fighting types, they're not really known as healers, which makes a lot of sense. As an attacker, it's just below average. Tank is a little bit worse than below average. As a healer, it's still pretty good. But I would not do any max spirit with Dynamax Passimian either. So we're gonna go talk about Dynamax Machop and going through Machamp. Machop here is IV is 678 through 730 CP. This is one of the ones that you're going to farm for. On top of during the one of the community days in May, we will have Machop, so you'll be able to get a lot of candy for it, including XLs. So you should be able to get both a Dynamax Machop or Machamp and a Gigantamax Machamp, especially with the ability to do remote raids with them now, and be able to feed them both up if you are playing enough on the community day. Has the same resistances and weaknesses as all the other fighting types, and its stats are fairly low, but that's because you need to evolve Machop into a Machamp, which requires 125 candy. Machamp and both Dynamax and Gigantamax have the same attacking stats. The only difference is Gigantamax will have slightly more power in their one attack. So when you are fighting for Gigantamax Machamp, you're looking for an IV of 1746. That's the hundo. The floor is 1667. It does not gain any new elements, which kind of makes it okay as a tank. For an attack, it's 234. Defense is 159, and it has a average stamina overall. For Gigantamax Machamp, and also this will be for regular Machamp as well, it has 3 different fast attacks. Counter is just fine overall. Karate Chop would be slightly better, but don't really need to worry too much about it. Charge moves, we have a whole bunch that we're going through. If you're interested in understanding what you need to do for Gigantamax Machamp, please follow the link in the upper right hand corner, and you can go ahead and take a look at my guide for Gigantamax Machamp. But overall, for Community Day, for Dynamax, if you upgrade, you'll be able to get one of the charge moves as well. For Machamp, Dynamax is a 7 out of 10. I have an 8 out of 11, but 7 out of 10. And as an attacker, Gigantamax is obviously top tier. It is the fighting version of a glass cannon. It is a poor tank, but I have seen much worse tanks out there. And as a healer for fighting, it's overall pretty good. For the overall, the Machamp is a slightly weaker than normal Gigantamax. It's still stronger than some of them like Charizard and Blastoise and Venusaur, but Gengar is obviously much stronger, so it still fits a 9, and a Dynamax Machamp is still fairly useful as an attacker, but with fighting types, they tend to really only be good against Pokemon that are weak against fighting. So you're not really going to want to plug it in case you don't have the correct element to match up for the most part. As I say, as a tank, it's definitely not the worst tank in the world, but it's not great either. As a healer, it's still pretty good as well. What's interesting about fighting types, they tend to have higher than average hit points, but none of them really excel in hit points either. So they make good healers, but not great healers. And finally, we have Kubfu. And Kubfu, I have another video here. You can click on the link. And with that, you'll be able to understand how to evolve Kubfu, and you're going to see why Kubfu is so important to evolve. Kubfu does have the same element fighting as all the rest, so we're not going to go through that. And Kubfu stats for what I would say is the first, or even if it's just a one stage evolution, Kubfu's primary stats are actually pretty good for the first stage evolution. Overall, its defense is a little bit low, but that's always an issue with fighting types anyways, is they tend to have high attack, decent HP, but fairly low defense. And one of the two here is Urshifu Rapid. Rapid is a water type. It requires, unfortunately, an ungodly amount of candy, 200, and it takes 30 raids of water type with that Kubfu as your friend in order to upgrade, which is pretty painful. But both of these, unfortunately or fortunately, are incredibly worthwhile, especially because fighting types tend to not have a lot of resistances or weaknesses, and Urshifu really gets around that for the different typings. Rapid also has water, so it has 3 fast attacks. Fortunately, the best ones are 1-second fast attacks, and you can use both counter and waterfall, so you might be switching through. And when you do use Urshifu, make sure you use the correct counters, or not just counters, the correct fast attack, either counter or waterfall, to make sure you have the correct element. Rapid Strike does have 60% weakness, so it takes 60% more damage to, unfortunately, a larger amount of elements: electric, fairy, flying, grass, and psychic. For the most part, where electric and grass are the more common. We haven't really fought that many fairy yet. Flying and psychic also are fairly rare for now, but we'll be seeing a lot more of them soon. But generally, if a Pokemon has a lot of weaknesses, it also has an awful lot of resistances, and that's very true with Rapid Strike as well. So you have Bug, Dark, Fire, Ice, Rock, Steel, and Water. There are some Pokemon that have a longer list, and longer lists here make them a lot more useful. And Urshifu is quite useful, especially with Fire, Steel, Water, Ice, and Rock. It is also strong against Bug and Dark, and a lot of times I know you'd be like, ooh, Dark. Wait until Single Strike, and then you'll start really seeing another very interesting one. But I go through this in the Kubfu upgrade video, but very, very useful as a tank. Its attack is quite high at 254. As I say, fighting's usually above average, but not super strong. This is one of the strongest attacks we've seen so far. Gengar is slightly higher, but Urshifu has much better defense. It is actually average defense, which is very high for fighting types, and its stamina is also very high as well, as equal to Passimian. Single is the dark type with fighting, has even more unique combination, which is actually very important because it gives you some very strong and some very weak points. Another thing that's strong about Urshifu Single is it has a 5-second, 0.5 second, not 5 second, 5 second would be horrible, 0.5 second Sucker Punch attack for Dark, which is really important. But Urshifu does have a 156 or double weakness in Fairy, and it has a 60% weakness in fighting and flying, so it takes extra damage. But instead, you also get a unit that is strong against Ghost, Psychic, and Rock at 37.5%, and has a doubles resistance to Dark, making Urshifu basically our premier Ghost and Dark tank. Why does it make it the premier? Most Ghost and Dark type units will fight with Ghost and Dark type attacks, and they tend to be weak, and so it's usually you're fighting a unit that's strong in the element that's also weak there, and that's why Ghost and Dark types can be kind of challenging. Dynamax Urshifu really turns it on the head by being really resistant in it and still being able to attack Dark, and with that typing, actually attack very well, especially for Dynamax. So if we ever fight anything that's used as a Dark type or a Ghost type, they will generally be fairly weak to that same element. And with that, that's a pretty big Dark and Ghost, you can will be still flat, which is fine because they they will resist the fighting part, but you could still at least get the attacking with Dark. Or if you're fighting a Ghost type like Gengar, they're weak to both Ghost and Dark, and with that, you'll be able to absolutely annihilate them. Very, very good. Has the same exact stats as Rapid. The only differences are your elements that you're weak and strong against. So, from a Rapid Urshifu point, and for the fighting and all, I have them ranked the same. And honestly, as a tank, they might have been ranked differently because of the elemental types. Both of them are, I would consider, about equal in there. Maybe I should have slightly put it, maybe another tick on Single Strike for tank because I kind of like that element combo slightly more. But I have them slightly different on the ranking because of that. From the fighting type, Urshifu is the second best attacker, only behind Gigantamax Machamp. If Gigantamax Machamp wasn't coming out for a while, it would have cleaned across the board easily. Urshifu is a very powerful unit. I know why they made us pay for a second one, because it's by far the best fighting, and overall, it's a very good unit in general. As an attacker, it is very good. Tank and healer, best fighting. For water, it's slightly weaker. Inteleon and Gmax Kingler, especially Gmax Kingler, really blows out of the water. Inteleon's slightly stronger, but this is stronger than Dmax Kingler. As a tank, Blastoise would be better, and there's better like Lapras. There's better water tanks overall, but it's still very good as a tank. Water types tend to be the tankiest of all the tanks, or an absolute glass cannon. And as a healer, it's still even pretty good with its HP and stamina. So overall, Rapid is quite good. But Single Strike, Dark, it's the best Dark type attacker. Honestly, it's not even that close. Tanking for Dark, it is very, very good. Blastoise officially can attack as a Dark, so it kind of moves it around just a little bit. And as a healer, it's really powerful as well. The only one there is Greedent. But overall, I feel Single is slightly better in a lot of aspects than Rapid. And now what we're going to do is go with our damage capability for fighting. And since this is a fighting type, we're going to take a look at only fighting levels here. And you can see that fighting here is basically Gmax Machamp is number 1, followed by Urshifu. The difference there is fairly big. It's about 25% at level 20 and almost 34% at, or actually 35% at level 50. Dmax Machamp and Urshifu wins by 10 to 15%, depending on the level. Passimian is roughly half as different between Machamp and Urshifu, and Falinks is quite far behind. So for the overall 2 fighting types for each role, we have attacker fighting. The best pure damage is going to be Gmax Machamp, followed by, in my mind, it is going to be Single Strike Urshifu, barely followed by Rapid Strike. Mostly because the Dark, and on top of it, it has a 0.5 second move that just brings it up just a little bit. From a pure damage standpoint, I have them calculated the same, but Single Strike will slightly outdo Rapid Strike. From a fighting standpoint, I think the Single Strike combination is slightly more unique and more interesting, and will have slightly more use than the Rapid Strike. And so that's why I have those 2 separated out. For healing, Single Strike and Rapid Strike are equally good as healing, and Passimian is number 3. It's just as good, but as a tank, it's worse, so I dropped it. But all 3 of them heal exactly at the same amount. And with that is my fighting ranking as of May 2024. We got a lot of fighting units in the last 2 months, so I thought it was pretty good to have this one compared to the tier list that I had in January. A lot of these units did not show up then because we just got them in the past couple months. With that, if you like this type of content, please like and subscribe. That really helps my channel. I'm getting around 20% subscription, 80% non-subscribers, so my numbers could go way up there. That would be great. You can also contact me on twitch.tv/MattGuru. When I'm live, I'll be happy to answer any of your questions. I have other contacts as well. My Discord will be up probably next week for Pokemon Go as well. Once that is up, I'll have that down on all my connections down there. But most importantly, I will try and do better next time. Have a good one and good luck out there.